Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 792. That's right, we're almost at 800 free episodes, and you can get all of these episodes within my app at freehypnosis.app. If you haven't downloaded it already, rather just listening on YouTube or the podcast, get the app, you can download everything, and also use lots of different hypnosis sessions within there as well. But in today's episode, 792, we're talking about raising your standards to achieve the success that you desire, and including releasing the things which no longer serve you. I mean, if we really put it very basic and simple, if you have low standards in who you are, in what you do, in what you expect, well, you're just going to get that back to you. It's going to be a mirror. If you have low standards for relationships, in other words, you expect people to hurt you, you have people who, you expect them to cheat on you, you expect them to not treat you with love and care, well, you're going to attract that level of energy in most cases. Now, there could be that angel out the blue who comes to show you another way of a relationship, but most of the time, our expectation, our evaluation, our standard of what we think is good or bad or indifferent is what we really get back. Same thing when it comes to your career. If you have a certain standard for yourself or your career or the business that you run and do, well, that becomes your benchmark. It becomes your expectation. It causes you to go, well, this is what business is like, or this is what my career is like even. Same thing when it comes to our health. Look, we can come up with all these different analogies and different areas of life, but usually, here's the thing. Whatever we do in one thing of our life, we tend to do it in everything. Just like how I say, the symptoms are made up of a root cause, so the root cause creates the symptoms of worry, dread, anxiety. Really, the thing we do the most, we tend to do in lots of different areas. So let's just say if you have a low standard for living a happy life or a low standard of your self-value, well, that will show up in your career. It will show up in your relationships. It will show up in your health, in your abundance, all of those things. Your expectation, your standard of success, you bring into your life. That's what I want you to really think about today. What are you bringing into life based on the standard that you set yourself? Think about it. If your health is not where it wants to be, or where you want it to be, or your relationship, your career, think about the standard that you're setting up for yourself, because that perception becomes your projection into what is possible. That standard of what is possible or not possible will keep you stuck within that model and that frame of that world. You are the benchmark setter to your desires. Now, we can go a little bit deeper to this, because where did we get that level of standard? Before we want to raise them up, let's understand where that standard began. Well, let's just say it is about your career. Maybe it ties back to a belief about yourself, like not being worthy, not being deserving, not being capable, the fear of the failure, rejection, fear of success, fear of what people think. All of those things will then create and build this standard of expectation. Now, we could then tie it back to maybe certain events in our life. Maybe let's say our parents had certain standards. Now, let's just say they were real high standards, but you had to be successful, but you felt like you could never live up to them. Well, of course, now your standard goes down because you go, there's no way I can have that perfectionism, so I might as well not do it at all. So your standard has suddenly and significantly dropped. Same thing about certain events that we've gone through. Let's just say we've had that one relationship which was highly abusive, whether it be physically, whether it be verbally, whether it be a narcissist, whether it be passive aggressive, whether it be being cheated on, whatever it is. If that is your evidence, a standard of what a relationship is, you will seek out more of the same. And now before you say it, you might go, look, Joseph, I did not have this as a standard. There's no way I would consciously create this standard for myself. Even when it comes to money, there's no way I want to be poor or in scarcity. And that is true. But I said a key word in that first beginning sentence. And that sentence was, I wouldn't consciously decide that standard. Because that is true. You wouldn't. Unless you really have self-hatred and you do that purposefully, which I very much doubt. In other words, your unconscious mind is the benchmark what we're looking for. That part of you is the part that creates this standard of success, this standard of failure, this expectation of health, this expectation of relationships, career, finances. That part of you, which is running beneath the surface, is doing everything when it comes to your standards for success or failure, for happiness or pain. Now, we know then, if that is true, if your unconscious mind is running it, we know that maybe because it's had that one bad, crazy relationship, or that one time we felt absolutely rejected at work or at college, or maybe that high expectation from your parents, or that you would never be enough, all of those things, well, we know will formulate now your unconscious mind's standard of what is going to happen. Now, if that's true, which I believe it is, you don't have to believe me. We talked about this in a previous episode, like who you're listening to. There's just a collection of my thoughts and my ideas over the years, having worked with so many different kinds of people. But I do believe that beliefs create the standard of what is and what isn't possible. Now, of course, that is simply subjective. Because maybe there's someone else who's had the exact same experience as you. Let's say the exact same trauma or significant event of that bad relationship or that perfectionism given to us by our parents. Well, maybe they chose differently. You see, I know people who have lived and grown up in poverty, and one section of the people think, well, that's the standard of living, that money is really hard to come by. But then I've met these super successful people who grew up in crazy more poverty, yet they made a decision that there's no way I'm going to live like this. There's no way I want my future children to have this. So by having that negative situation happening, it caused them to raise their standard. And that just means it is a subjective experience of standards that we buy into, that we start to radiate at a conscious and unconscious level. That emotion that we build, the association, because that's all it is. You see, if you think of money right now, you're going to have a certain feeling, thought, idea, belief of what money is. It's a perception, it's an unconscious association. You think of money and you may feel scared or scarcity, or you may think of beliefs of money doesn't grow on trees. That's simply an association stored at an unconscious level. Same thing, someone else could have that bad situation happen, bad relationship, and suddenly go, there's no way I'm going to put up with that anymore. Whereas the other person goes, well, this is the standard of a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship is one where I am used and abused, verbal, physical, whatever it may be, gaslighting, all those things. So it just goes to show, then we have choice. Now, it doesn't seem like we have choice because it's happening unconsciously, but the fact that two different kinds of people can go through the exact same situation but come up with a different level of standard, that all this trauma means I'm going to have real crazy high standards so I don't experience this ever again, to the other person goes, well, this is just the standard of what life is. It's a choice, it's a decision, it's an unconscious process. It means that you have the power to do something about it. And the reason why I say all of this, that it's a conscious and unconscious interaction with the events you've gone through, with your present moment and how you perceive the future on these specific areas of our life, which we've kind of cultivated over the years, we've associated to. It means that we can then start to cultivate them in a different way. Imagine if you start to do the work today where you become conscious of the unconscious standards that you're setting. And remember about this. Another different kind of segue we're going to, a little kind of a side point here. If we said in one of those examples that our parents may have given us a high expectation to have a certain standard of success that we could never live up to, so we lower our standards, therefore, what are we then bringing out to those in our present life? Maybe we have children. Maybe they're observing, because 93% of all communication is unconscious. 7% is words. The rest is physiology and your tonality. So if you're saying all the right words, so look, if you want to, you can do anything that you want, son or daughter, you can achieve X, Y, Z. You say the perfect amount of words, but inside you're feeling at that incongruency. If the words don't match your physiology and your tone unconsciously, then you're sending a mixed message. Or the other case scenario, which is even worse, we actually just impose the same standards of what we've gone through. In other words, not just the physiology and the tone, but now you're saying the negative words too, to make it 100% communication of this is a low standard of living. This is what a relationship when it comes to standards. Because children, the people in our life, are always observing. That's what they're doing. So it should be a good and great wake-up call that we do not want to pass down the same level of standards. So draw a line in the sand. Become conscious of the standards that you set yourself up unconsciously. You see, when you do become conscious, I also believe you're now allowing the unconscious mind to become conscious of these expectations and these standards that you've been setting. And to me, that can create epiphanies. It can go to like realizations that, oh, just because I went through these significant events, I don't have to repeat the same story and the same pattern and the same standards in my life or people in my life. I can break free of this. If you can have that epiphany at an unconscious level that makes your unconscious mind realize that what it's doing is not protecting you, in my opinion, it has to level up. And I'll tell you exactly why. You see, your unconscious mind, your best friend, that's what it should be anyway, is only having these standards, no matter how low they are in expectation of what is possible about yourself or the things in your life or coming your way. Your unconscious mind is only running those for a positive intention. Now, you could say, well, why would my unconscious mind consider money as poverty, as scarcity? Why would my unconscious mind give me all this pain when it comes to relationships or going into meetings with dread and anxiety? Why would it be doing that? That's not healthy at all. That's not safety. That's not protection. Well, I agree with you there. Once again, the byproduct, the actions, the experiences that we have, absolutely negative. But just like a phobia, despite how negative and actually more dangerous it could be, right? If someone has an irrational fear to a specific thing, it can cause them to go in this fight and flight response, and it can actually put themselves in more harm. So we can understand that the action or the consequential aspects of that low standard as not being healthy for us, but unconsciously, it is a biological instinct and decision to keep you safe on an intentional level. So think about the standards that we set ourselves, not as the consequence, but the positive intention that led to that consequence. For example, if we don't feel good enough or worthy, our unconscious mind is saying, don't go into that situation because you might get hurt, you might look silly, you might fail, you might have more pain. So it's better for you on an initial level, not long term, but in this initial moment, to play small. Have low standards for yourself, because you know what? You might get hurt. You remember that last significant situation we went through when everyone laughed at you or you had that bad failure? We don't want that to repeat again. So think about your unconscious mind trying to have these standards, no matter how low in consequence that of positivity compared to the large quantity of pain. By keeping that low standard, your unconscious mind's only doing it for protection. So if we can get the unconscious mind to recognize that there is an alternative to this consequence, that if we start to upgrade our mind and our body by becoming conscious of our standards, it may begin to have an epiphany. It may begin to go, actually, this was just taught to me because of this certain situation way back when I was like 5 years old, or when I was at school, or wherever it may be. That's when we came to the conclusion of it. And of course, as like say if it was 7 years old, you didn't have all the knowledge and information to consider differently. Where it be a singular event, or maybe it was around family, you trusted your family, or you at least unconsciously relied upon your family, and they became the standard of what is possible. So we live that standard and repeat the standard because we didn't know better there either. We were too young. But if we can highlight that this way is, although trying to keep you safe, there's alternatives that will not only keep you safe, but will now level up your standard of success to go, actually, this is what I want. One of the ways you can start to do this is by becoming aware of the consequences of the pain. What happens if I stay the same? It's not a nice process, right? It's not. But sometimes we've got to have a look in the mirror and go, actually, this is not serving me anymore. When you become aware of the consequences, and then become aware of the consequences of changing if you level up your standard. In other words, if you were to feel worthy, deserving enough, when you go into that interview, you get the job, or let's say it's a promotion. Now you got like an extra 10 grand per year, which is obviously going to grow even more than that because you know you're unstoppably confident. Think about all the benefits of that on a financial, on a security level for your children if you have children, or for your pensions and investments. Now suddenly, that seems pretty safe, right? To have all those things. Same thing about relationships. You can go with the consequences of staying the same, of those expectations that you're having, to then also think of the consequences of changing. Now we're no longer living in no man's land. We've kind of expanded the gap and realized the pain, realized the absolute heaven. Now we've got to make a choice. We've leveraged the unconscious mind. So step one is become conscious of the standards that you're setting yourself and even other people in your life, like children and so on. Or it could be employees or co-workers. It could be in lots of different factions of people. Then start to become aware of the consequences of living the same standard. What happens if we don't change? Doesn't feel very nice, but it's definitely going to motivate us. And then become aware of the conscious transformation if you set up this new high standard, knowing you're worthy, deserving, and enough. It will then make your unconscious mind a need to change. And sometimes we do need to change, right? Sometimes we need that aspect. It reminds me, what is the Christmas movie I love? Christmas Carol, I think it is, with Scrooge. Right, going through all those different consequences of the past, the present, and the future of the three ghosts and so on. Well, it's a level of waking up. It's a level of understanding from a different viewpoint that it's not serving us anymore. And that can create a big epiphany of like, oh my goodness, I need to be a kinder person. I need to be able to help my community. Because you can. But it all starts with you on the inside. So become conscious of your standards that you've been setting yourself. Become conscious of how you may have come to that conclusion. Become conscious of the beliefs you have around that specific standard that you're setting yourself. Health, relationship, career, finances, and career, health. May have said that as well. But become aware of the different areas of your life, or the specific segments of your life, of how you're setting that standard, the belief around them, the feelings around them. Become aware of the positive intention around them. Because when you realize there's a positive intention, you have less hate for yourself, unconsciously. Because if you hate your standards that you're setting yourself, you're hating your unconscious mind. And that just deepens the divide and conflict. But if you become conscious of the positive intention, you can at least appreciate your unconscious mind, like I said, your best friend. And then it's going to work with you. Come up with those consequences, come up with what it's going to get you. Imagine if you came up with, like even in my program, we go through this, all the different reasons to change. And then when you look at them, you go, this is absolutely going to happen. I'm going to have this deep, loving relationship with someone who really sees me for who I am, where I feel seen, heard, and felt. I'm going to have the financial abundance to help myself, my family, children, or community, or the world, or financial security in the future. I'm going to have that career that I love because I know I'm worthy and deserving of it. It's going to allow me to go on to different experiences, vacations, to challenge myself, all of those things. I'm going to appreciate the health that I have, having let go of the absolute stress on my shoulders every single day, or the gut-wrenching fear and dread. Like once you become aware of what you want to release and what you want to receive, you're literally creating a new standard. Because you're deciphering it. You're deciphering the old code and software you've been running, and now you're going to start to write some new software simply by becoming conscious. Now, of course, you may need to do some deeper work as well, because look, at the end of the day, how long have you had these standards for? Right? If you had a standard of I've got to be perfect, and therefore you don't go for what you want in a fear of failure, maybe you've had that ever since you were 7 years old. Maybe it's decades that you've been running this standard of what is and what is not possible. So therefore it's ingrained at an unconscious level that bit deeper. It doesn't mean, and here's the other thing, which might be another episode in the future I was thinking about at the weekend, and that is the quickness of change. You see, we think because we've had our issue for so long, it's going to probably be the equal measure of having the issue of the time that it will take for us to release it. That's absolute lie. Absolute lie. How quickly did it happen to choose that you're not enough or worthy or deserving? Well, for most people, you may have had certain frequency of events, but usually it's in a moment that you actually decide that belief. You may have had all those different situations happen to you, but it's that decision. So if you can decide to have a problem, a belief system about not being worthy, deserving enough, well, surely your unconscious mind can make a new decision, breaking free. Now, of course, sometimes you need the right learning, insight, process, connection, expertise from someone else to get your unconscious mind there. But don't fall into the trap of thinking the standard of transformation takes years and decades just because we've had it for years and decades. That's not true. Don't buy into that standard of success and freedom. It can happen in a moment when you have the right support, or you have the right expert, or you have the right epiphany. It can be by self, it could be by others, all those kind of things. You've just got to make the distinction between the standards you're setting, which are either yours or not yours because they were kind of given onto you and therefore you can give them up, and decide a new level of standard. That nothing less is acceptable than being worthy and deserving enough, because I believe it's your birthright to know that you are love. I believe it's your birthright to be whole. I believe it's your birthright to know that you're enough. Not through fakeness, not through like just cheer you up and say everything's gonna be okay, because look, we've got challenges to go for. I'm not saying like you're gonna get a medal for just doing this. I'm saying that you've got to realize that it is still your birthright to know you're enough and worthy and deserving, that you are of value and you are love. You've got to do the work to get there, but it's absolutely in your path. Now, of course, as always, if you ever need a tailored, customized solution for you to make this change in a very, very quick amount of time, like within weeks, in other words. So you could have decades of the issue, but we let it go within weeks. So not a long time at all. You can go to josephclough.info/talk. When you go there, you'll book a time to speak with us. It'll be a one-to-one Zoom call with us, and then you go ahead and fill out an application. It prepares the person on the call, right? Therefore, On the call, we get clear on exactly what you want to let go of, get clear on exactly what you want to achieve, figure out what's getting in your way, and then come up with a customized, tailored solution to your needs. You got to be invested, you got to be ready, you got to go all in, only a few hours per week for 8 weeks or so, or less. But you will transform your life forever, to know you're worthy, deserving enough to let go of the imposter, to be the person that you've always dreamt of without any anxiety or fear. I know what it's like to believe I'm not enough. I know what it's like to know that I am enough. And I know what standard I'm going to be setting myself up for the rest of my life. Because once I let go of all that stuff, I was able to achieve all of these things. Look, we're on almost 800 free episodes, we've done 13 million downloads, almost 200,000 downloads every single month just on the free podcast. So I know the definition of my own standards, know I am worthy and deserving, and having been in pain, to know what it's like to dread is so vitally important for me that I want to help people get out of that pain. So if you're ready and invested, go to josephclough.info/talk, and that means you can go ahead and apply to be a part of our program. Once again, that is an investment, it is custom and tailored to your needs. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're enjoying the free work, please go ahead and leave a review on the App Store. Just go to your App Store on your phone, type in Joseph Clough, Clough, and then it'll pop up. You click into it, you scroll down a little bit, and it says like rate and leave a review. Do that, and that means we can hopefully set a standard for those who need help by listening to my free work. And once again, hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to speaking to you in a future episode. Many thanks, and goodbye.